5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey there, it's Stephen Hale from the Nashville Banner. I'm here with my colleague Stephen Elliott. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So we haven't done this with you since there was a Metro Council meeting last week. So we should talk about that a little bit before we get into what we're going to get into later. Mostly because I want to talk about the boring tunnel, which I know was a topic there.
Yeah, the meeting was pretty busy, actually. And Boring Company was a big topic. There was a resolution on the agenda. The resolution doesn't actually have any power, per se.
It's non-binding.
Non-binding. It just expresses the council's opposition to some of the stuff that's been going on with this tunnel that they're planning to build from downtown to the airport, and then a network that grows from there.
Yes, it's the Tesla tunnel, right? This would ferry people to the airport in Teslas.
That's right.
Do you think that resolution will mean anything ultimately? I mean, as you said, it's not like a act of law. But the fact that the council is so now publicly on record opposing it, like, do you see that having much effect?
Yeah. Well, I'll also note that the vote was 20-15, so it wasn't, some unanimous proclamation. I think a couple of council members brought this up during the debate. They said, if we pass this, it will be a sign to the state that we are not good faith partners on this project, and they might seek to do certain things to, take back some authority or further kind of punish the city government for not going along with their plan, because this is really a state-led thing.
I was going to say that's kind of interesting because, as far as I can tell, the state and Tesla kind of did this without a whole lot of conversation with the city, or at least that we can tell.
Yeah, from what we know, the Boring Company did approach the mayor's office, what would that have been, a year and a half ago or so, well before this was announced, and there was apparently some sort of very informal preliminary conversation. And this was during the transit referendum, and I think that the administration didn't want to get anything complicated going that might confuse voters about, well, this is a transit thing, but we're also voting on this tax referendum, so why don't we just let Elon build our transit system and not vote for this? I think that is generally the gist of what we've heard. So anyway, they planned it more with the state.
Got it. Well, it sounds like that's all going to go smoothly. Was there anything else from that meeting that was interesting before we move on to a topic that we're going to talk about today that I'm actually kind of geeking out on? But
yeah, there was a lot of talk about the East Bank. The PSC Metals scrapyard site there's a redevelopment plan there. It's a very significant one, and there's a lot of debate about whether the plan that's been put forward aligns with this thing called Imagine East Bank, which, if you've been following Metro, you might remember was this plan where everyone got together and said, here's what we want from this swath of parking lots and industrial sites along the east bank of the river. So that'll be brought back up. It's actually not, there is a council meeting on Tuesday. That won't be discussed again then, but it will be at the following council meeting. That'll be up for a final vote.
The East Bank stuff's kind of crazy because I feel like maybe it's not getting, it is getting talked a lot in certain metro circles and by government officials, but just in kind of day-to-day people living here, it's like it's a big issue, but because the timeline is so long, it's not like, it doesn't feel necessarily like a pressing thing, but this is going to be going on for the rest of my life or something. Like it's a long term.
They'll present timelines at some of these meetings, East Bank Development Authority meetings, where there are things that are 10 years from now,
It's like, come on.
There will be a groundbreaking, I think, within the next several months on one of the affordable housing developments on the East Bank. And so I think that'll be the first really major project to get going other than the stadium, which obviously, as you can see, is like almost done.
Right, yeah, they got working on that right away. Have you seen there's a thing online going around, forgive me whoever made up this meme, but that says like Nashville is building a giant new Shoney's, and it's because of the angle of the picture. You just see the Shoney's sign and then the huge new stadium.
Yes.
It's quality.
Shoney Bear needs
content.
to be at the ribbon cutting.
Maybe it could be. So you have a news story out this morning as we're recording this on our site about the latest, what shall we call it, kind of dispute or issues at the Fairgrounds as related to racing and the possible return of NASCAR and development at the Fairgrounds area. But I thought we could just talk about the Fairgrounds a little bit as a spiritual thing in Nashville politics and government, and then kind of go from there. Because you and I were talking about this offline, but it's just a sort of endlessly fascinating place to me because of the role that it seems to play in the city, where you have a lot of history there. You have a lot of different people who use it for different things and who feel warmly about it for different reasons. Racing, the state fair was there for many years. There's flea markets, anyway, I think it's just an interesting place to be getting. What do you like? What interactions have you had with the Fairgrounds? What's your history there?
Every couple of years, if you've been covering Nashville news long enough, every couple of years there's some new development, lowercase d development around the Fairgrounds, that some big new fight, whether it's about racing, whether it's about noise,
right.
whether there's always discussion about parking, the soccer stadium, and the state fair leaving. I mean, there's just every couple of years there's some big new fight, and there's, as you said, there's all these competing groups that have some overlap but don't, they have different interests that sometimes align and sometimes don't, and it's just kind of a mess of a political minefield.
I made a quick little timeline here to either catch people up if this is your first episode of As the Fairgrounds Turns, and also for us to kind of talk through, and then we'll get to the latest thing that you've written about. So in 2011, the Fairgrounds has been there for over 100 years, and I was reading that apparently at one of the early state fairs there, the first nighttime airplane flight happened there.
Okay.
No one fact-checked this, but as far as I could tell, this seems accurate. Anyway, so fast forward all the way to 2011. The Fairgrounds been there all this time. There's a long history of short track racing, big racing heads will talk to you about the Fairgrounds history and its role in NASCAR history and stuff like that. So there's a lot of history there. Come to 2011, Carl Dean, then mayor, proposes to redevelop the whole thing. So that would involve tearing down the racetrack and making it this mixed-use development. It was like corporate park, business park or whatever too. And this leads to a giant kerfuffle.
To use the technical term.
Yes, which is a term of art, which includes a public hearing at the Metro Council that is still historic, or a legendary night at the Metro Council, this hours-long public hearing where people are coming and debating and saying what they think about it, and is later defeated, or I guess you would say the redevelopment plan was defeated by this citywide referendum that passed with 70% of the vote and enshrined the existing uses of the Metro Council, or of the Fairgrounds, into the Metro Charter.
Right.
So it now says in the Metro Charter, this is what happens at the Fairgrounds. Includes racing, but also includes flea market and various other things. Mm-hmm. I won't try to recite them because if I leave one out,
the people
will be at my home.
Yeah, they'll come for you.
And then, so that happened. So that sort of saved the Fairgrounds. The movement was called Save the Fairgrounds. And as I was looking through this, but to your point that this continues to be a minefield politically, in 2015, there was a nominee for the Fair Board that has to be approved by the Metro Council. He got voted down because some video emerged of him having supported the redevelopment plan years earlier. And so this continues to be an issue. I remember when I was writing about some more Metro stuff and Fairgrounds stuff, it was always an issue of Fairgrounds people felt like, okay, you lost your attempt to redevelop the Fairgrounds, so they thought Metro was just letting it die on the vine, not funding it enough, letting buildings decay and stuff like that. All the way forward to 2017, when the Metro Council approves the financing for the MLS soccer stadium. And that's a whole other thing. You mentioned parking. That becomes another big change there. And there's an agreement, and this plays right into your story today about all the agreements that happen around the stadium, and then the stadium opens in 2022. I think I'm right in that.
Yep.
And, of course, they've been playing soccer there ever since. So maybe jump in there at the stadium, because that's when the current troubles emerge from.
Well, I think to go back to your first point in the timeline, I think it would be amazing if the Fairgrounds returned to having historic first accomplishments. I think that would unite the city in a way. I don't know what the new version of that would be. First nighttime flight.
I mean, I agree. We could. We also need to get back to having world fairs.
Yes.
This is just a separate take I have. They used to be places where incredible inventions were unveiled. Mm-hmm. Probably some like really regrettable things if we dug into the history of them, but also these were just really cool things where they've spawned like great nonfiction books that I think we both read. So we should have more world fairs, and I agree. We should be breaking records at the well, it's not the State Fairgrounds now. What did they call it? The Fairgrounds Nashville, or it's been rebranded multiple times.
Fairgrounds Nashville. Okay, but to answer your question, so MLS to Nashville was successful. The city was granted, or an ownership group in the city was granted an expansion franchise to bring a pro soccer team here. The Fairgrounds seemed like a decent place to build a stadium because there's kind of a lot of space there. The best spot for it was where the old barns were, where the flea market was. Mm-hmm. And so there was a big fight kind of from the flea market vendors. They're saying, you're displacing us for the soccer team. They built some new barns. Flea market is going on as it was before. But anyway, as part of this whole fight, you're basically using public property for a private business profit-making endeavor. And so there had to be some kind of back and forth in terms of...
This is like more traffic sound than we've ever experienced during a recording.
And we're really like, we're discussing things here, and there's just like apparently a raging fire going on.
So there has to be some back and forth about what the city will provide and what the city will get in return. And around that time, there was a push to establish a community benefits agreement, a CBA, which had not really been done in this fashion in the state before.
Yeah, and I should underline what you just said, because I don't think I said it explicitly in my long-winded timeline, but that this is city-owned property that all this is happening on. So that's an important part of every one of these discussions, whether it's the racetrack or everything. This is all happening on property owned by the city. So this community benefits agreement, which was another big story at the time.
Right, and so this agreement was ultimately signed, and it kind of paved the way for the council to go along with the plan. And it was signed between a independent advocacy group, Stand Up Nashville, not the city itself or council members. And so it was between kind of Stand Up Nashville and the soccer ownership group. And it laid out a few different things that would happen as part of this deal. As part of the deal with the city, the team was going to get this parcel of land. I think it's about 10 acres right next to the stadium, and they could develop it. And the theory then was they needed to develop it to make the money side of the stadium construction work. There was a lot of fighting over that at the time. We don't need to get into all that.
This is bringing up things I didn't even know I remembered about this. But yes, now the 10 acres is popping up in my head.
Yes, so we don't need to get into all that. That was a fight at the time, and I think there's still some sensitivity around it. But anyway, there's this parcel right in between. It's basically in between where the soccer stadium is currently and where the racetrack is. Kind of there's just a little strip in there. And the team promised that the development would include a certain percentage of affordable and workforce housing. And it would include kind of this artisan space for like micro units for small sellers of things. And it would include so many square feet for a childcare facility, which was flagged as kind of a need in that neighborhood. And so there were all these promises. There were also promises related to the stadium and the pay that people who worked there would be making. And that stuff seems to have gone fine, according to my reporting. But the the development side has been very slow. One building has been completed. It has housing units in it, and it has like a coffee shop and the maker artisan spaces in there too. There's some fighting about that, but that's another story. But the other, it's two more phases basically that have not been done, and that would be about 600 more housing units with a certain percentage of those set aside for affordable and workforce, and the childcare space, which were some of the highlights of the CBA. It's like, we're approving the stadium deal because these things are being promised. And basically what the story says is the developer, Market Street, that is working with the soccer team on this development, has put it on hold. And they finished the one building. They're putting the rest of it on hold. So that's 600 more units. That's the childcare space. And they according to them, it's because of the possibility that the racetrack could be renovated and NASCAR could come back. It would make it kind of a higher profile facility with higher profile events. This is a plan that you sort of alluded to in your timeline, but it's been discussed over the years a couple times, especially in the last 5 years. And they said, Market Street said that it'd be a struggle to capitalize, to basically get money from an investor to build more residential and childcare at the site if it was going to turn into the next door neighbor of a NASCAR track.
Right.
There are obviously some counter arguments to that. I mean, the racetrack has been there, like you said, for a century. Racing is going on there now and was when this deal was struck. It's a different type of racing, and NASCAR is obviously a more intense version of what goes on there now, which is more usually like local teams with, smaller cars, or I don't know if they're smaller, but the engines are less powerful.
It's less people, fewer cars. NASCAR would definitely be a bigger event.
So some of the people involved in this are kind of skeptical of this argument that it's because of NASCAR, because that's been part of the discussion for years.
I mean, that's that. I feel like getting NASCAR back to the Fairgrounds Speedway has been like the holy grail for some folks for a long time.
Right. But, I think there's this idea on the developer side that that is a different level of intensity that would make... They did a lot. They said they did a lot to insulate the building that is currently there and open from the noise from both the racetrack and the soccer stadium.
Right.
So that included how they oriented the building and its vents, but also the materials they used. And they would work to do the same with future developments, but they basically are saying that at the NASCAR level of intensity, it would not work.
Mm-hmm. So, as best you can tell, what happens next or could happen next? We have in your story, you report, the developers saying, look, if you're going to bring NASCAR back, this isn't going to work as planned. But what are the kind of leverage points now? Does council get involved again? Does there some I don't know. Maybe we don't know the answer to that. But
yeah, we don't know. And that's one thing that Odessa Kelly, who leads Stand Up Nashville, told me when I asked about this. She said if we could go back and redo the CBA, we would be more careful about putting timelines and specific instructions for how this would be delivered. Because it says there will be this number of units and there will be a childcare space, but it doesn't say within so many years. And if it's not delivered within so many years, then we will do this other thing instead. And so it's a little unclear what's next. And, we asked the mayor's office about what they thought, and they're like, the developer knew about the racetrack when the deal was struck. Racing, as you mentioned, is still required by the charter. So that's another question we can get into. There is a possibility that we'll be voting on a new charter referendum about banning racing at the Fairgrounds, which would completely change this conversation.
Yeah, we would be breaking maybe a new record of public hearings. That would be a totally different thing. It's like I said earlier, I just think it's kind of endlessly fascinating because so many people have so much connected to that property and what happens there and how they feel about it. And then of course there's it's been a growing neighborhood around it for a long time. So it's been changing, and I feel like it's emblematic of situations happening in a lot of ways in the city where I mean, this is, I guess, sort of cliche, but where change is coming up against history and what people want out of their city or what it means to them. To some people you talk to, they're like, Nashville is synonymous with like racing at the fairgrounds. Like that's how they think of it. And then other people are like, that I don't want that anywhere near me. But the thing was already there. It's just a very interesting conundrum.
Yeah. And the neighborhood is another part of the equation, and it's a community asset. So it's like there are these competing levels of influence where people who live right outside their homes, if you've been there, their homes like right around the edges of the fairgrounds. And during all these debates, there's always input from those groups about noise and traffic and their home values and the neighborhood changing. But I think in a lot of these debates, there's also zooming out to say, like, this is something that the whole community owns and uses. And so in a way, it's like the neighborhood concerns are not paramount, or I shouldn't say not paramount, but are not the only thing being taken into account.
Right. And, to underline, or perhaps it goes without saying, but I mean, childcare, there is like a definite shortage of that, along with housing. So it's easy to see why that was brought up as something, even all those years ago when that deal was struck, and it's still, best I can tell, still a need for sure.
And one thing that someone in this story noted to me was, so the wage floor for the jobs, this deal was struck, I think, in 2018, and they set a $15.50 an hour wage floor, which at the time, was Fight for 15 was a big kind of talking point. And this person said to me, pretty quickly that became almost irrelevant. Like that dollar figure is no longer that great of a benefit. Yeah. But, maybe they could have added an escalator in on that or something.
Yeah. So I'll let you go. People should check out your stories on NashvilleBanner.com. And we didn't even plan this, but we're talking a few days before the Oscars. And you and I are both love to watch a movie and watch an award show, I think.
Yes.
I think if I recall, have even talked about the Oscars on a podcast before in years past.
We did.
So what are you thinking going into this? It's a Hollywood's biggest night. Are you going to the Belcourt? You've gone to the Belcourt event before,
I've gone
right?
once before, and it was really fun.
I've never been, and I really want to go sometime and get dressed up and do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Do you have like a movie that was your favorite or that you're rooting for that people should check out?
I liked a lot of movies this year. Of the Best Picture nominees, I think obviously the ones that everyone's talking about are good. I think Train Dreams is one that fewer people are talking about that I really enjoyed.
This is what I was going to say too. And I really agree with you, but it is like such a devastating movie. Everyone I recommend it to, I'm like, you got to check out Train Dreams. They're like, oh, cool, that sounds fun. Trains, what's it about? I'm like, well, but it's great.
Yeah, and it's just beautiful. And I think another one, Secret Agent, was very fun to watch.
Brazilian film, right?
It is, yeah.
I don't know where you can watch The Secret Agent. I'm sure you can rent it. I know the Train Dreams is on Netflix, so if you have Netflix, check that out.
I saw Secret Agent at the Belcourt, and I don't know what their schedule is. I know they show as many of the Best Picture nominees as they can again.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, this is not a paid sponsorship, but the Belcourt does do their annual thing where they screen the Best Picture nominees. So here, with a few days left, you can go check those out, which I may try to do Friday or Saturday night. I don't know.
Are you still missing any?
I am. I'm behind on a few. I haven't seen Hamnet.
Oh, that one's tough.
Well,
I liked it.
I've heard good things about it, but I know it's gonna like make me cry, and that happens enough already. So I have to plan. It involves.
What about F1?
I saw F1. It's great. The F1 season just started again in real life, so people can check that out too. But yeah, we can talk about all this another time. For now, we'll get out of here. We are our production of the Nashville Banner. We have a special assistant producer today, Zora. Thanks for your work on this episode. And as always, we are produced by Andrea Tudhope, who I've been assured is going to use artificial intelligence to replace everything I've said here with more coherent, smart sounding things. Subscribe to the feed and we'll see you soon.
My name is Zora, and I like dancing, gymnastics, and I also like singing.
I think you being here kind of like helped the vibe. I felt like comfortable. I felt like pretty chill. What's your like schedule on Thursdays?